I'm turning it on here. Takes a moment.
Okay, welcome back, everyone, for this second part of the Tricot webinar with Kawa. So please, Kawa. You're muted, Kawa.
I'm muted, yeah, sorry. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, it looks perfect.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some lessons that we learned from that. Some slides I will jump, but all of them are linked to publications, and I will send this presentation to you. And if you think it's relevant, you can just go to the papers. Just to show that we're doing some trials. So this is basically the locations that we've been working. All these black dots that you see here are basically places where we've been doing tricots. And also in Africa, more taking into like this view, there are many crops that we've been working with. And then first thing that people do when people did some years ago, like 10 years ago actually, was to check about what motivate farmers to participate. And we did that in India, Ethiopia, and in Honduras. And what farmers are willing to, but why they are doing that is because they want to contribute to the research. They say that this kind of community-based approach, they like to be involved, and that's one of the main goals. And also, when they have this, they expect to get some interaction with the farmers, or with the extension officers, no, the technical people, no. So this is one thing. It's very few situations where farmers are expecting to get money, and the only case is when they are already used to that, like when there's some other projects that give to them money for some reason, then they expect to get the same, but it's very few cases. Talking about the costs can vary a lot, like depending on how you do, how much control you want to have over the farmer collecting the data, how trust you have in the people involved. But in Rwanda, we did a kind of a research, and then we saw that for potato, no, the comparison between Tricot and RCBD is that you see that the cost of one plot of Tricot is kind of $4.5, and a cost of one RCBD is 6. The advantage is that in Tricot you can have more people involved, so you get more, let's say, more social construction or social experience of that instead of only 50 here, and also you get more varieties also instead of only 6. So the cost can vary a lot, but what I can highlight is the cost is lower per data point, and there are more opportunities to reuse the data for many other stuff. And this is exactly what I'm going to do now. Someone asked me what was the limitations, and we see the limitations basically in this paper. I will not go to the details on that, but one of the limitations that we have is that in Tricot, the farmers, they are kind of independent. Is an independent approach. Sometimes they can interact with other people, but they are doing the evaluation independently. So if you want to improve, for example, good practices in farming management, or improving, let's say, sustainable practices or things like this, Tricot can be a limitation if you do Tricot just to test varieties, because the farmers will not be so much engaged in a group based. No, it's not group based, so they will not learn this type of things. They will just tell you what works for them, and they will give you their input, and you can get the view from all the farmers and see what works well for each, and then you can do a refinement of the varieties in the next round. So the main issue is that one. People also talk a lot about the logistics, because Tricot is all about logistics. So in some countries where logistics are difficult, it's a very challenging approach for the first year. So my recommendation is that if you do a Tricot trial, you should do small number of farmers in the first year, just for you to get used to the approach. So one of there I can point out these two. Lots of people also complain about the cost, but I asked for them to give me the table with the costs, and they never come to me with that. So then I don't know if there's any pressure that you throw more money, but at least in the cases that we have for for Rwanda in Central America, or the cost is equivalent, or is this the same or lower, with a higher opportunity of reusing the data. Analytical tools I already said. One of the things that you can use Tricot data now is to do risk management. So this is one example of Nicaragua, where we could find bean varieties, no, with two different performances under certain climate over the vegetative period. So if you think about a more warm nights during the vegetative period of the bean, you see that these three varieties, they are the best ones. These three, this is the probability of winning, and these are the three best varieties for that type of climate conditions. And if you think about, let's say, a business as usual climate, like a normal nights in the region, you see that the local variety is still the best, and this one as well. So these two varieties, they go well. And then you can create this type of maps with variety recommendation. But if you imagine a scenario that you don't know what is going to happen in the future, like you don't know, and then you need to take a decision. So you can take this risk management decision, which is basically an economic approach called called regret theory. And then you can say, okay, what is the scenario where I will have the least regret if I take a decision with an uncertain scenario? So then you can see, for example, if you go for probability of winning, the local variety is the best. And if you go for the worst regret, Inta Fuerte Sequia is the best. So if you take a portfolio of these, like people do in economy, ideally a crop system, a plant system for a certain season will involve a portfolio of a combination of the local variety and this improved variety. So with these two conditions, we have a student now in Tilburg, in Netherlands, working in the which proportion exactly needs to be given. 50% is 50-50 or 30% 70. This is something that is being under development right now. Of course, I said about data repurposing, and using data for, let's say, regional analysis. So basically, this is one example of was 5 teams across Central America doing different trials. But since they belong to the same regional network of bean improvement, we managed to put all the data together, and then we could create this type of recommendation maps for variety recommendation, like a variety recommendations in the seed systems for Central America. And this was a PhD thesis by David Brown from Wageningen, and also with Sitze de Bruin. You can also do consumer testing with Tricot. It's not only about on-farm testing. This is something that we did in Ghana and Uganda. It was with SIP, this lady called Mukani Moyo. So they did that, and they give sweet potato to farmers, to people in the market, and also farmers to try and say what they think about. And then you get the appraisal of them and see how this works, no? And what is funny is that we managed to see that different districts in Uganda have some kind of different preferences on varieties, no? Of course, if you think about these two, the Ejumula is the top variety in Uganda in both cases, but the second best changes, no? So for example, for this group in Gulu, these two varieties are the best, and this group in Soroti were the best. But okay, we know that people have different preferences on potato, but why? We don't know. We didn't know because we couldn't get into that detail with potato. Since this research flows with the money as well, no? Whereas the money goes, we need to move sometimes to other crops. And then we moved the same research to cassava. And what we got with cassava is that, okay, we saw in Nigeria that ethnic groups play a significant influence on how people prefer EBA. I don't know how familiar you are with EBA or EBA, I think. I don't know. It's the gari, it's the food that comes from cassava, no? So we know that ethnic groups, they play a role in defining preferences. For example, you see here that these guys, the Hausa, for example, clearly they prefer this variety, TME B3. And if you think about Yoruba people, they reject these two, but all the rest are fine for them. You see? So then why? Why this happens? So what we did is that we picked the data from the farmers, the consumers, no, in the market, and then we linked that data with the biophysical data that was collected in the laboratory, like a color, stretchability, all these metrics that are collected, and then we use it as BLUPs. No, BLUPs is this biased, linear, unbiased. Well, I forgot the name. It's unbiased linear metrics, whatever. BLUPs metrics. So what we found is that, okay, people in the Hausa community, ethnic groups, they prefer varieties with low solubility. And why they like this with low solubility? Because they want the cassava to stay in the water for longer, so then it starts to get a bit fermented. So this is how they like to eat eba under their common ways of doing. Yoruba people, they like to put palm oil to the gari. So then they create a color, no, kind of a yellow color, and to do that, the cassava needs to be white. So then you see here that the color of the cassava is really important for them. So this is something that we found really nice, that you can merge Tricot data of the preference with the socioeconomic, so let's say ethnic groups, with the data that is collected in a more controlled environment, which is the lab. And then you can get insights on how develop new products or new varieties for breeding under certain groups, no? We can jump to that. And also, this is in Ethiopia, research developed by Gareth Borman. He worked with Median, I forgot her surname, but in Varney and CDI. So it's the figure is big and it's difficult to understand, I know, but I want you to focus on the overall performance. And these are different crops that the farmers did. And what we were testing here is the hypothesis that men and women has different options on preferences on the varieties that they test. And what we saw, and that this is a very common case for most of the crops, not all the crops, but for example, field pea, basically the farmers, they agree in all the cases. But if you think about sorghum, finger millet, durum wheat, common bean, maize, barley, and this one, teff, if you think about these four crops, these crops here, the agreement between men and women is less than 50% about the top varieties. So there is a clear difference between what men prefers and what women prefers, and we can go to the details in the next presentation, the next slides. Let me just, yeah, I'm monitoring here the time. Okay. So basically, this is a summary of the paper. So this paper is going to get out maybe in the next month, and then I can share with you guys. We know that they prefer men and women. They have different preferences. The farmers, they have something that we also saw in the Central America study. and also in other studies that the farmers, they like the local varieties, but they are open to new varieties when the varieties fits their needs. They are open. It's not they are against the new varieties. They just need to see the purpose of this. And of course, always working as a portfolio. They will never ever say, no, I would just get rid of my varieties and will plant this new variety that you're introducing. They will prefer a portfolio of options. They are really into this kind of risk management. This is something that we did in Ethiopia as well with forages, no? And I will jump to that. It's the basically same idea. And this goes to what I will start to introduce to you about different groups, different farming groups influencing, creating a kind of a socioeconomic preferences. So this is a research that we did with amaranth in Ghana, in Benin, Mali, and Tanzania. And then what we did is that we got the farmers' rankings, and then we used socioeconomic data like distance to the markets, who decides how to plant varieties, how they get seeds, all these questions about seed systems. We put into the data how many years they have growing the crop and how many years they have the age of the farmer. And then we managed to get 4 groups, and I will explain to you how this works in another case with the other case study in Tanzania. But what we managed to find here is that you can create different groups, which are basically the market segments, so the seed segments for variety recommendation with the farmers. No, basically, for example, older men generalist, the older men growing amaranth, they don't have a really clear preference towards a variety. They prefer whatever you send because they have a diversified set of crops they grow. So basically, they have amaranth as basically one of their crops. Um, I can jump to that one as well. And just to finalize, and then we can go to questions. Uh, I will show to you this one, this case, which is something that we developed recently. And now I lost it. But anyways, it's the idea is why gender is important in breeding, no? And this is the case for Tanzania. So the context is this, no? It's a groundnut, 1,800 plots, 57 varieties. Tanzania, 4 seasons, half men and half women almost, and done by Tari and Simit. What is the thing that we have here? What is the problem? No, where people are saying, yeah, gender is really important to be considered, like the thing that I showed to you in the city systems in Ethiopia, men and women. But my hypothesis is that dichotomous men and women analysis assumes that the gender are primarily the split, like that is the primarily determinant of decision making in market in farming. And I think, or my hypothesis, that socioeconomic roles provide a more accurate and actionable framework because there is not only splitting by men and women, no? But we know that in previous studies that actually gender is very influential in how farmers choose varieties, no? Of course, these top 2 varieties here, no, the resilient varieties, they are top in both cases, but you see here the distances between and the other ones are more important for men than for women, for example. Women also consider drought escape as important and intercropping, and men take a drought escape as like the third far option. So what is the thing that we do then? First thing that we do is that we use R. Now we do the analysis in R, and then we create clusters of farmers. Now let's say market segments based on shared socioeconomic characteristics. So age, control of production, control of seed exchange, control of marketing, experience with the crop, and also agricological zone. So we do the analysis of Tricot data, testing the differences of the rankings among the segments, because we want to see if the rankings are creating, if the data is coming out as with significant difference with the And then what we do using a large language model, no, it could be ChatGPT or any other thing. We read the results and we narratively create the clusters to kind of create a kind of a farmer persona. No? What is going to be the group that will be the group of farmers that are very similar to that characteristics, that socioeconomic conditions. So what we found in the research is this, no? For example, we found a group of farmers which are called mixed gender farmers. So basically mixed gender farmers are a group of farmers, most of the cases 50% women with a high age, let's say between average of 59 years. They are highly experienced in growing groundnuts, and they have more than 23 years of growing groundnut. And the household dynamics that basically men and women share the decisions. No, they are the ones sharing decisions about seed exchange and selling. And most of them are within this type of agroecologies in Tanzania, no? So what we see is that the top varieties that they prefer are these three, no? One is the one that was released last year as with this name, and these are the traits that for them are more important, no? Grain color, marketability, and grain size are basically important for all the three groups that we found, but the other things that are here, they start to change. So you see this change. You see the change here? So the other segment is called women-led. Basically, is a group which is predominantly women, but also there are some men involved in that group as well. But the difference here is that the women, they are growing the groundnut, but they are not. They are also young and also less experienced, but they are not the one deciding where to sell the seeds and also how to exchange the seeds. They are though only responsible for production. And then mostly in these regions. And also they are very into new varieties, no? And also they like the other variety which was released last year. And also the traits that they prefer are very different. And then we have the ones where men are the main important group, head of the decisions. And then also they take control of everything. Let's say this is a completely macho group, 100% men taking decision and also doing whatever. And this one is basically shared. This one is shared across the whole chain for planting to selling. They share roles. They do together. And this one is a group where women produce and the men decides what to do with the produce. Okay. And then and this one is the man doing everything. And then we see that there is a great control of everything. And then you see that these men, they prefer a classic variety from the seed systems already. This is called Analiandele. It's a 16 years old variety. And also they also like these two new varieties. But what we learned in this study is that gender, of course, plays a role in that, but they are not the sole determinant of a market behavior. No, each segment has a very specific characteristic that now we need to go with the farmers and validate whether they find it something that they identify themselves with this type of groups. So these are some of the insights that I have to present to you in that part of the session, and I will open for questions.
Awesome. Very good, Kawa. Do you want to share this with questions, Connie? Or I'm sure that you
no,
have some very good questions.
Me? Questions? No, I've really enjoyed your presentation, Kawe, because I had on my mind that I should dive in this Tricot trialing, working with triads, but I never got to do it. So this is a great introduction, and I'm impressed by the power of the data sets. So that's impressive. If there is, let me try one question then. You showed it as an also economically speaking an effective exercise to collect information. But still, the budgets that you need to make such a thing happen, the people involved, it is a major exercise, right?
Yes.
And I was just thinking at the group of people now here present and learning about it. If you are a simple PhD candidate, researcher, junior researcher, you cannot do this on your own. You need to embed it in a larger program in order to make this work. Would you agree to that?
Yes, I agree. And that's most of the cases when we have, I also was a PhD student working on Tricot to say, and I was involved in that as part of a program. All the PhD students that has been with us, they are basically, it's part of the training as well, be responsible of doing a trial, but a small set, like they will be following up and doing, I don't know, one region of the trial, and also and then get access to the whole, let's say, whole framework. For example, this thing that I showed about the yield assessment were basically two PhD students doing research on only that. No, that's what the very specific question they had to ask is how citizen science can inform this type is whether farmers can produce accurate data on metrics. And then they did that research in one region, but they also got access to many other trials. So yes, I agree with you. And the best thing is that they are involved in a trial. And of course, we work a lot with Wageningen also. If you want to have Wageningen students working with us, these guys from the plant PPS, plant production.
PPS. The group of Katrien. The group of
Yes,
Katrien.
Katrien.
Yes.
Yeah. So they are the ones mostly we do with them with Joost van Heerwaarden. So Joost is responsible for that. So even he being a statist, because he shares roles. No, he's from the biometric and also from the system for the plant production. So he's the one recruiting or getting PhD students from Wageningen.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. Are there any other questions? Yeah, Biraju. You unmute.
Yes. Thank you, Kao, for your insightful presentation on this very interesting topic. I'm Meratu from CIP Ethiopia. I have just two questions. The first one is, what will happen to the seed system if farmer in nearby locations select for different varieties, like many varieties, as the case in Nigeria, for example, in one of the tribe or ethnic group selected many varieties as their priority. So which variety should the seed system pick in these kinds of cases? Because for the seed system, it may be difficult to pick many varieties as the business case may not be very feasible. The other is like, how can we minimize source of error from participating farmers in Tricot trials? Like, because many farmers, they have different capacities in understanding and evaluating different traits. And when they measure also, they may have different capacities and understanding about these research topics. So when you give farmers the chance to evaluate, they may come up with different rates. So how do you reduce these kinds of error? Thank you very much.
Yeah. For the first question, I must say that I am not the best. You have much better people here to answer your question on the seed systems. But what I can say to you is that this is something that I'm working with the guys in SIP as well, with this group of Kalpana Sharma and Eli Atieno in Nigeria, actually, with potato. And they are now on this process of what to do in the seed systems when you need to promote more varieties. Actually, this ongoing question, specifically for the country that you say. So I don't know if you are aware of this research or it was just by accident. But this is one. And then the other question about data quality. There are some measurements to test for data quality, which is something that Joost, our colleague in Wageningen, is doing, kind of even simulations to see what happened when the farmer submit the data wrong. Inside the platform, we have tools to monitor as well the data quality when they submit. We can check for that. There are ways to verify that inside the platform. And about the traits, generally the traits they are designed on something that the CG is now doing a lot. CGR is doing a lot is what they call the target product profile. So you already have a kind of the set of traits that you want to target when you have your crop. So what we do is that we try to get into to meet in the middle between breeders and seed system people on which type of traits can be used among them, no, for the both trials. So that's why we are now in the process of creating the standard operating procedures for each crop. So then, for example, let's say I will just say here now for beans, one of the main traits that are important, no matter if you are doing a seed system trial or a breeding trial, is the overall appreciation, yield, marketability, and resistance to pathogens. No, so this is very important for them. So then breeders, they might have other traits that they want, and then seed systems might have other traits, and then we compile to that. But there is an exercise in the target product profile, which involves the farmer feedback on that. And then there is another one in Tricot where we ask the farmer specifically to tell us why they like and why they don't like the variety. And then they have an open-ended question. They tell whatever reason they have for not liking or for liking the variety. And then we analyze this data quantitatively. And I have also some slides on that, but of course we didn't have the time. But we also see using like a quantitative research what are the main drivers of farmers' preferences around the traits. So this is it. Yes. So, I don't know. Did I? I hope that I reply your question. Your two questions.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Noel, on the slides, trait influencing overall, we have marketability in Avisa. Once again, we increase the pains, address the question: can marketability be bred? So the rule of thumb is to unpack these things and funnel marketability. Yes, marketability is a trait that you cannot put in a breeding pipeline, but the farmers, they see that as a trait. No, it's like overall performance as well. Overall performance you cannot put in a breeding pipeline, but you can explain marketability by other traits. So this is something that we can also do with the data, like you explain taste, for example. Taste is very subjective. No, and marketability can also be very subjective. And then one thing that you think that we can do is that we use is like a market distance. How far the farmer is from the market is one, and also the traits that the farmer see as marketable. Like for example, seed size, seed color. So these type of things they are not so much subjective, and then you can trace back to that. And this is something that I am developing right now, which is basically it's called what is the name of it? I'm developing and I don't selection indices. So you use Tricot data to do selection indices based on traits that you can monitor back. But it's important to mention that in participatory research, sometimes the traits they are not so objective as a breeder we respect, because the farmers, they also take objective metrics, but there are some things that are very subjective to many layers, no? And there are many layers on marketability, and I can share with you later as well, Noel. Yes.
Okay.
There's also a
More
question there
question.
from Grace on how you typically select farmers to participate.
Where is it? How do you select farmers to participate? So there are many ways. And normally what we do is that we engage with the farmers already working involved in a network. People say sometimes that you can left out farmers, but they are already involved in a cooperative. They are engaged in some kind of work. For example, it was funny in Central America. They was even in the church, So farmers go into the church organizations. Church is a social network, no? So they were there, and then you invite them. It's part of the church thing, and it was done with the Catholic Relief system, no? CRS. So this is one option as well. You find the best way of that the farmers get together. So one way is also cooperatives, and then this could be how do you recruit farmers through these already existing social organizations. And that's something that actually Jakob, my boss, wants to go deep now into that part of research. Farmers in social organizations. Um, and how do you ensure that the farmers tie the tricot? To be honest, it's very very cases when the farmer leaves tricot, what we call the let's say only 5% of the farmers will drop based on what we call self-attrition. Maybe because one of the reasons for them to leave the project is when the goals of the trial are not really well defined in the beginning. Like maybe people were in a rush to recruit farmers and just hand over seeds, and the farmers were expecting to get some financial benefit or some kind of follow-up or something. The expectations are not met. So first thing to ensure is that you need to give to the farmers, put their expectations clear, no? Like this is a trial, the goal of the trial is that one, you are going to get this type of things for us, and then that's the end of the trial, that's what you're going to get. So I think that when the expectations are clearly stated, it's very difficult that the farmers they leave. For example, in Central America, I also go back to the Central America case. It is really interesting because they have this kind of a rule of honor, no? So for example, I remember that in Guatemala there was some farmers that actually they returned to the office, and they delivered back the seed saying, this is too much responsibility for me, I cannot do this trial. Based on what you told me, like based on what you told me, what you expect from me, I think I cannot do that because I don't want to have the responsibility on that. Like they have this. So it's very difficult that a farmer will say, no, I'm leaving down after saying yes, if you put the rules of the game really good. So the attrition is very low. But the attrition, let's say, external attrition, when you have a drought, flooding, whatever, you never know what's going to happen. And this one can happen, and you need to treat that also as data, as information that you get from the trial. This is one. So self-attrition, very low if you explain explicitly, clearly the goals. Do you have any findings about long-term impact? Yes, the paper on Martina Orcelli, one of the slides that I shared, the one in agriculture economics. I will put the link here. In that one, there is a research there about that.
There's also a raised hand here from Mariana. Please, Mariana.
Hi, Kawe. Thank you. Super interesting. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Kawe. Thank you. Very interesting. I'm Mariana. I'm doing a PhD in Wageningen with Connie. And yeah, I was wondering, super interesting. But I was wondering a couple of things. So maybe I missed this part, but how do you select the traits that you are going to evaluate? And then it's only pre-harvest traits, right? So you can Yeah, it's only pre-harvest traits. And then I wanted to know, like you do both. You do the Tricot trials with breeding varieties that are in the process of in the pipeline of breeding, and also with commercial varieties. And in case that is if they are commercial varieties, do farmers get to know at the end of the experiment what were they trying?
Yes, they will know what they tested at the end, no matter
Okay.
if it's a commercial or not. About the selection of the traits, there are two ways. One way that we are doing now is based on what it's called the target product profile, which is something that the
Yeah.
CGR is pushing a lot. It's that
Yeah.
it's a kind of you develop an idea of variety and then you see which traits needs to be improved. This is one way. If you really want to do the traits by yourself with the farmers, we did that in Laos, for example. We basically invited the farmers to a meeting with us, and then we did a trait prioritization. We picked some traits that we thought that would be relevant, and then we asked them to give points to each, and then I even have the photos and so on. This is one way as well.
Cool.
And then we also asked them for traits that were not there. And the exercise was really cool. We did that in Laos, no, I said in Laos. So then it was really cool because they came with traits that we didn't think about. So this was really nice. The other approach which is documented, is this one by Jonathan Stenke. It's called gamification. No? So you can do kind of a gamification with farmers, and he developed this thing called AgroDuos to do trait prioritization. What I like in the AgroDuos is that you can get statistics, and you can get like a real, let's say, not real, but I mean
More
sophisticated and
tangible.
robust data that you can analyze, not only qualitatively, but quantitatively. So there are these three options. From the future now, if you're going to set up a trial on CleanMob, you can choose to use on one of the SOPs that we have, that we will promote, with the advantage that you can already get clearance on the ethical board, on which traits are going to be collected and things like this. And if you want to go with your own trial, for example, defining the traits yourself, you can do that. But the advantage of what we are doing now is that basically we are learning from the data. So we do the trial with many traits. And then we saw from the data which traits are the one driving overall performance. So the traits that are not driving overall performance, we are just rejecting them. And then it's basically the farmer telling us which are the traits that they are looking when they are assessing the variety. So the ones that they don't really care, we just don't recommend it anymore. So it's basically let's say a feedback loop when we propose things, and then the farmers come to us with what they want.
Good. Can I ask something else?
Yeah,
How
I
do
don't know.
you how do you very fast, please? No, just like how do you, because these are like could be like secondary traits, and how do you like navigate a bit the tensions between what is possible to breed in a way and what farmers want? So for the product profiles as well. So I guess you work quite closely with breeders, but yeah, at some point there are choices that have to be made.
Yes, what we do now in CG, and something that we are doing is doing something that is called market intelligence. There is a
Okay.
market intelligence platform. So what we did, and I didn't show that in my slides. I jumped the slides, but it's called the concept testing. What we do is that in collaboration with the farmers, we do a kind of imagination. What is the name of the thing? Is it imagination? I don't know. There is a kind of approach for that called imagination or something like this. So where you did, huh?
Envisioning?
What? No, not envision. It's kind of it's kind of imaginary, whatever. I will find the name. It's imagination, something that you create something out of your imagination, but there is a name for that, for this approach, and then you create that and an ideal thing, and then you ask the farmer whether they will be willing to buy or not variety if they are in the system. So what in the beginning, most of the breeders, they were kind of reluctant to go to the results, but we saw that some of the crops are actually using this feedback to define priorities for the product profiles. For example, if you I have the let me just do that because this is really funny, because one of the things that for example, people never considered intercropping as one of the traits, no, for breeding. Because if you think about all the crops that they develop in, they say no, this is a monocrop.
Yeah.
But if you look at the farmers in this testing, most of them they want an intercropping. So for example, where is the intercropping here? Intercropping with beans. So for example, if you are in Kenya, no matter if you are male or female, you will always like intercropping, you know? Even more if you are lowland, if you have small land, you will always like intercropping before any other trait, you know? So these type of things are something that are actually being used now by them. So this is one of the things that can come. So there are many, let's say, sides in that thing, and then we are approaching them from many different directions, no, and then trying to get into a point where people will decide something. But there are many different directions in this very complex system. Yes.
Great. I think we soon have to wrap up, but you had a question for a while, Viriato. Is that your name?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Kawai, thanks for your presentation. I like the way you started your presentation with the why, and one of your why was the mismatch between what farmers want and what they were getting. But I then lost. How do you follow up that when doing the Tricot? Because I felt like it might be my the way I understood. I felt like it's more like a extractive approach and mainly based on formal seed systems or formal breeding, in which you can have like a national breeding program. You have different scientists in different places, and those scientists can have some farmers who are somehow lead farmers who can participate in the process of gathering data. I felt to really see where for example, a smallholder farmer, poor resource farmer, a farmer with really variable landscape, different strategies when producing things can really fit into the Tricot approach. Can you explain that to me, please?
Yes, of course there is it's an iterative process. Now the farmers will not get what they need in the first interaction, because you need to get information for that, no? Take the decision. So one of the ways that we do is that basically sending over the seeds, and then they inform which is the best and the worst. And the part that I said is basically this one, the last slides that I provided on Tanzania case, where you clearly see that there are farmers that don't get. Let me go for another example. I will not go for that example, but there is an example in cassava with IITA, where if you take the data, if you take the information based on other trials, all the farmers will be getting one variety, the variety that the farmers will prefer for that specific group would be the fifth variety overall, because they were not any other condition considered. And then if you consider what the farmer needs in terms of socioeconomic characteristics, household size, land, and all these other socioeconomic things that you can include in the data, you see that this variety that was basically left out by the breeding program as number 5, it's actually number 1 for 1/3 of the farmers, you know? So this is one thing that we can promote. And basically, this is how Tari, for example, last year, Tari was the breeder in groundnuts. She was planning to release only one variety. And out of the Tricot data, she saw that actually she need to release two, because there was another variety which was not the one that she was expecting to release, was also pointed out by a significant part of the group as the best variety for one region in Tanzania, you know? So the way it's basically this. So yeah, I also got comments on being extractive, but I think that to get information, you need to get into decisions that are really driven by information. You need to get data, and the farmers are really, they are informed about that. You know, it's not getting like extractive. And I'm really careful personally. I'm really careful about that. I come from a region in Brazil where people go, collect data, leave, and nobody comes, you know? I grew up with that my whole life, seeing that. So I personally take this, I relate to that every day of my research time, you know? I take care of that every time. So I really got it, and I particularly try to address that in every interaction I have with breeders, with farmers, and with the stakeholders.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I think we have to start wrapping up. I'll give you the word last, Conny, but I just want to say that last question there, that discussion, that is exactly, you know, showing that you also need to look at the entire seed system. So Tricot is not meant to solve all the issues in seed systems. It's playing one particular function. So more about this later. I just thank you, Kawa. Very inspirational to listen to. I hope everyone felt the same. And I hope that people don't feel intimidated, because you're so good. You're doing so many cool things. It can at times seem very complicated, but I think you're also very inspirational. You just show that this is about coming up with ideas, testing them out, and that there's still a lot of space and opportunities for new ideas on this, and new interesting research. So with that, over to you, Connie.
Yeah, actually, I found it after the with Kawa's explanation much less intimidating than I thought it was. You know, but it's you have a wonderful capacity to explain, and maybe it is not so simple as it looked like today. So yeah, a bit to balance what Ola said. So it's complicated in many ways, but you know, also it's not from another planet. It's I really appreciated your presentation today, Kamer, and yeah, a very valuable input for the course. And I want to close with two comments to the participants. Those of you who during the course would prefer vegetarian food, can you, now that we close the meeting, send me an email directly? The other comment is, you only have 24 hours left to send me the poster. Okay? Everybody, thank you a lot for being present. It was good to see so many of you. And Kawa, again, thanks. I'll be back on the email about the PowerPoint and the PDF and the recording and so on. Enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah.
Thank you,
thank you
and good course.
and yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah?
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Viriato.